Germany's largest importer of Russian gas, Uniper, is in trouble. But Berlin is determined to guarantee the resource company's survival as winter moves in and the energy crisis deepens. Germany needs foreign gas supplies, and without them, nothing works. That's the dire warning from the German energy regulator Bundesnetzagentur last month,
Ohne diese Gaszuflüsse geht hier gar nichts.
just 2 days before a planned maintenance shutdown of the Nord Stream 1 gas pipeline. In the first half of the year, Russian supply cuts caused Uniper more than 12 billion euros in losses. Uniper burned through its cash reserves, sourcing gas on the spot market. The company has already soaked up a government rescue package worth close to 20 billion euros. But now the Düsseldorf-based gas importer needs more help. In July, Berlin offered a rescue package which included buying a 30% stake. Now, Chancellor Olaf Scholz's government is poised to increase its stake above 50%, giving the government a controlling interest. Full nationalisation is also under discussion, but for that to happen, Uniper's Finnish parent company, Fortum, majority owned by the Finnish government, would have to give its approval. Finland recently announced its own multi-billion euro energy sector bailout.
The recent strong price fluctuations in the electricity derivatives market mean the government has to take quick measures to ensure market stability. The government's Economic Policy Ministerial Committee has advocated for a 10 billion euro stability package for companies producing electricity in Finland to cover their acute liquidity needs.
But Finland has made it clear they'll not be putting up bailout money for Uniper. For now, Fortum is still the majority shareholder in the energy supplier, so it appears that Uniper's only chance of survival could be the German government acquiring a controlling stake.
Now, Germany's taking control of Russian-owned refineries in the country, including units of the oil giant Rosneft. The hope is that this will ensure energy security before an embargo on Russian oil begins next year. Berlin has placed Rosneft's German subsidiaries under trusteeship, which means a federal regulator can take control of 3 large refineries in the country. One's in the eastern town of Schwedt, which used to draw 100% of its oil from Russia. Berlin's now looking for alternative sources to keep those refineries running. We can get more on this from Stephen Beardsley from our business desk. Welcome, Stephen. So why is the German government doing this now?
Yeah, as you said, this goes back to the decision taken by Germany, along with much of the rest of the EU, to end Russian oil imports by the end of this year. Now, much of that oil comes into eastern Germany via pipelines, and a lot of that oil goes to this key refinery, Schwedt, in the north, that actually supplies the Berlin region as well. It's seen as one of the critical refineries in Germany. It is controlled, however, majority controlled by a Rosneft subsidiary. Now, that subsidiary has made clear that it has no incentive and no interest in procuring other kinds of oil once the pipeline oil cuts off. Now, Poland, in the meantime, has said that it's willing to provide some help. It has a pipeline from Gdansk on the Baltic Sea that could actually help provide some oil. But it said that it wants Russian control removed from Schwedt before it acts. The German government had another reason to take care of matters, and that is that there are a number of employees, 1,200 employees, in fact, in that refinery, many of them German, most of them German, perhaps, who want a resolution to this. It's also had reason not to act so rash. And that is, oil is still flowing through the pipeline, and it doesn't know how Russia is going to react. Ultimately, what Germany said is that the position that banks were put in, that insurers were put in, and that suppliers for these refineries were put in meant that they had to act now because they were raising questions and saying, what is the structure of this refinery?
OK, so does this mean that Germany's oil supplies are now secure for the coming winter?
That's what the government says, is that ultimately it has other options in terms of global supply, and that does make sense as well. The question will really be, how is that supply going to get to these key refineries? They are essentially connected right to Russia. That is where the oil comes in, and very cheaply over time. That is a very cheap solution. Now you're going to have to bring a lot of that in with tankers, and there are 2 ports that they're looking at. One is Rostock in Germany on the Baltic Sea. The other is Gdansk. Tanker prices have already shot up. That means it's going to be expensive. Also, do those ports have capacity to bring enough oil into those refineries? So these are the questions that are looming. It means that prices could go up, but the supply is there. The logistics are pretty tricky. And then we also don't know what Russia is going to do in response to this.
And just sort of zooming out from that, so has the German state effectively nationalised these Russian facilities, or are we talking about a temporary takeover?
No, it hasn't nationalized it. It's not taking possession of the assets of this refinery. What it's doing is it's taking control of critical infrastructure, and it's legally allowed to do that. It says it's owned privately, but it's critical for our uses here, and so we will control the assets that are still owned by others. It will push Rosneft out of the way and look for another operator. There are signs that there could be groups interested in coming in and taking over that position. The question is where it goes from here. We've seen that with something similar happen with a Gazprom subsidiary. That's the Russian state-owned natural gas firm. They had a subsidiary here in Germany that was also put in trusteeship. But it's been burning through money. And the question is, a nationalization might make more sense because of the difficult economics of natural gas right now. With oil, it might actually work to bring in another provider. The economic incentives might be there. So there is probably a better outlook, but the logistics are still going to be tricky.
OK, thank you for that. Stephen Beardsley from DW Business.